Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. This episode is brought to you by Empowered Collaboration, increasing empowerment through motivation, collaboration, communication, and connection. Hey, fierce women, are you ready to break free from the monotony of everyday life and ignite your inner brilliance? Well, join me, your badass coach, and fellow coach, Jody Graham, for an empowering week at the Awaken Your Brilliance retreat in the breathtaking Mexican Riviera from January 16th to 23rd, 2025. Rejuvenate with sunrise meditations, empowering workshops, and soulful conversations. Your spouse or BFF can enjoy the nearby PGA golf course while you focus on growth. Early bird prices until June 15th, so reserve your spot now and awaken your brilliance. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. See you there. And now back to the show. Welcome to another episode of The Art of Badassery. Today, I've got a remarkable guest with us who is truly a testament to the power of resilience and pursuing passions against all odds. Coming from the serene landscapes of a small town in Iowa, my guest's childhood dreams of becoming a published author and a singing sensation were bold and vivid, and of course, badass. Fast forward to today, and she's not just living those dreams, she's crushing them with style. Now calling the sizzling streets of Waco, Texas home, she finds her groove amidst the Texan heat, relishing the rich culture, the warm-hearted folks, and of course, the unbeatable tacos. But her story does not end there. She's a published author, a karaoke champion, and a captivating speaker, and a life story transformation coach. We are going to do a deep dive on that for sure. And if that weren't enough, she's also a creative entrepreneur, running a couple Etsy shops where she crafts accessories, art pieces, journals, and planners that reflect her unique spark. Get ready to be inspired, folks, as we dive deep into the life and the journey of the incredibly badass Ann C.K. Nickell. Ann, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
No, the honor is mine. Believe me, I am having such a blast connecting with people all over the world on this podcast. So I want to, thanks for joining us today. I love the fact that you were bold and badass from babyhood. Let's go back to when these dreams you first started to think, ooh, I want to do that. Can you tell us more about what life was like for you then?
Sure. Yeah, I started young with the dreaming. But just as a badass side note, it started before I was born. My mom suffered a miscarriage and lost my twin, but I survived. And so in the midst of, that trauma that she went through, she then found out that she still had another baby. She didn't know she was carrying twins. And so then she discovered, okay, there's still one there. And so later, after, I was old enough to start to understand, she would then give me a hard time about being stubborn and would tell me, you have been stubborn since the day you were conceived. And so, yeah, so I started young with the badassery, I guess. And so, yeah, at a young age, from the time I could hold a pencil, I started dreaming of being a writer. That was my biggest dream. And in third grade, I apparently wrote enough that I impressed my third grade teacher. And on my final report card of the year, she wrote on it, "Keep up the writing. One day I know I'll be reading your novels." And that just made me want to pursue it even more. And so that's when the big dream started in third grade.
I think my dreams in third grade were just to get more lollipops. Like, seriously. Oh, that's super cool. Was there ever a time in your teenage years or as you were growing up where you questioned that dream, or has it always been, resolute for you?
No, I've always wanted that dream. And of course, things get in the way, life gets in the way. But even, like I said, at a young age, and, I, my younger nieces and nephews, will tease me when I tell them, back in my day, we didn't have computers, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have all these, special things. So to become a writer then, I would save up my allowance, and once a year, I would beg my parents to take me to the big city of Des Moines and take me to the bookstore so I could buy the yearly writers market. It was put out by Writer's Digest every year, and that was the only way I knew of where I find out about writing competitions, publishers, agents, all of that info. And so I would get that every year, and then I would write poetry, poem after poem, and I would enter competitions. And even in middle school and high school, I started not always winning competitions, but I would usually place, and then started having my poems printed in anthologies at a young age. So yes, it's always been there. It's always been the dream.
So the writing, so you started off with poems. What type of writing do you do currently?
I do all sorts of writing. I do my poetry. I just released a poetry book last year. So my poetry, I write short stories, novels, nonfiction. I'm working on a book right now about my life, my story. So it'll be a nonfiction self-help book. So yeah, I all genres. I love all writing.
What's the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself on this journey as a writer?
Oh wow. That well, just to never give up for one, because like I said, life got in the way. And so it took years and years to become, officially published, as I put it. And I never gave up. I just kept going through, a rough marriage, dealing with emotional abuse, taking in a teenager to finish raising her, all these different things happening in life, work, because of course I had to make a living. And so, but with all of that, I never gave up. I just continued. So it really taught me persistence, I guess, and more about being stubborn, more about being a badass. So yeah, that's what I learned.
Persistence is key, I think, for success in any field. I'm curious though, if, as you say, when life happened, if those experiences have made you a richer writer.
I believe so. I learned a lot. And my one of my high school teachers who I really admired told us one day that it really helps to have something to write about. And so to go out and explore, explore the world if you can, go to different places, learn new things, because all of those things you learn and accumulate over time will enrich your writing. It will make you a better writer. And so I think by not, publishing my first book until a few years ago, I think that did help because I had been out in the world. I had learned a lot. I'd been through a lot. And I also had met a lot of people along the way in my travels and living in different locations. And I saw the different things that other people went through. I heard their stories. And that really helps when you see that, it's a big world out there with so many different people, and they've all been through something. And if you can take any bit of that and use it for your writing, it's going to make you a better writer. It has to.
How could it not? I'm also getting the idea that when, and the thought, I've thought this before actually, when we put ourselves out in the world and allow ourselves to be curious, not only do we learn more about the world, but if we give ourselves permission to, we actually learn a tremendous amount about ourselves, right? And
Yes.
to your point, I was actually talking to someone on a podcast just yesterday. I was interviewing a very creative fellow, and he shared that it was his curiosity that allowed him to understand himself better, which made him a better photographer because the more he got to know himself, the more he could learn his subjects, if that makes sense. So I
Mm,
love this idea of going out in the world, experiencing it, and using it as a mirror for ourselves.
yeah,
And to your point, to enhance your writing because you have more to grasp, you have more to, you've got a bigger well to dip in, right? For ideas, for empathy, for stories. So, so cool.
you do.
Yeah, going back to again, your words, not mine, life happens. You mentioned some turbulent times. When you think of those turbulent times, outside of that, you're stubborn and persistent. Was there anything else that you learned about yourself? Because I know the not everybody's born being a badass. Some of us learn it the hard way, and we don't feel like we're badass until we've gone through a lot. I'm curious what you learned of yourself during those tough times.
I learned that I'm much stronger than I initially realized, because my younger years were rough. I had a very good family, wonderful parents, but school was rough because I was always different. I went to a school, it was mostly sports based. And even though I tried, I was never good at the sports, just didn't have that coordination or that skill. I was a writer and a singer, I was a creative type. And being from a very small town, a small school, it was hard finding a tribe, people that fit my style. And so, I always sort of felt like a misfit, I didn't fit in. And so that was rough. So even through that, I learned I was strong, because I got through that. And then throughout the years, just like I said, being in an emotionally abusive marriage, first you feel weak, especially when you realize you've put up with it for so long. You feel weak at first, but then you realize, well, no, it wasn't really weakness. I was watching out for family. I was watching out for my daughter. But then when I finally got to the stage of leaving that, it taught me I was strong enough to be on my own. And then within a year of my divorce, the biggest incident, the worst thing I've ever been through in my life happened when I got the flu and I was given an antibiotic for it. And within a few hours of taking the antibiotic, I had lost feeling in both of my legs and couldn't walk and was rushed to the hospital, went into emergency surgery because they discovered that in less than 24 hours of, this flu and taking the antibiotic, my entire body from the kidneys down had filled with blood clots with this allergic reaction to the antibiotic. Yeah, so ended up emergency surgery and long surgery. They had to cut me in both groin areas to go in and start pulling out blood clots. And during the surgery, my right leg went back to normal, but my left leg developed compartment syndrome. It basically started to grow and grow from the pressure, and it was about to burst. So the surgeon then had to cut my left leg open on either side to relieve the pressure to try to save it. So yeah, so that happened all in, one day or 2 days. And so when I woke from the surgery, thankfully, he told me what had happened, explained everything, and first told me that in all of his years of surgery had never seen anything like it, had never seen that many blood clots, and told me I was very lucky to be alive. So I thanked God for that. But then he went on to tell me what he'd done with my leg, said that it didn't work, and your leg and foot are dead, and we are preparing to amputate.
Okay, I'm what?
That's what I woke up to. So yeah, I went from having the flu to an allergic reaction to an antibiotic and almost losing my life and my leg.
Did you get a second opinion?
No, well, I did in a way because they waited for 2 days because of what my body had already been through.
Mhm.
And in those 2 days, I turned to prayer and to gratitude, went to my faith. And so for 2 days, I prayed, I thanked God for my life, and I kept asking him for one more miracle. Like, please, God, one more miracle. And on the third day, my leg and foot came back to life. I mean, pure miracle. The doctor, surgeon had no explanation for it. There had been no pulse, no life, and on the third day, they discovered a pulse. And so I got my second miracle. And so I got to keep my leg. But then the surgeon said to me, well, you get to keep your leg, but you might have been better off with a prosthetic. And I said, what? And he said, well, with nerve damage, we don't know enough about it. And we don't know if or when you will get your feeling back. So you're probably going to be a GIMP the rest of your life. So that was the next obstacle.
Okay. Hold that thought, because I think I would love to talk a little bit about prayer and gratitude. I know that the idea of being grateful has been around forever, of course. And I know that even Oprah brought it back in the 90s. She shared with us how she started a gratitude journal. I also know from experience that it's easy to just say it. Oh, yeah, I'm grateful. This is my list of, I'm grateful for my cat. I'm grateful for my coffee. Love my chocolate. And to not really embody it or feel it. But I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about how you found the strength to actually simplify to two basic things, prayer and gratitude, because I think it's so foreign to many of us to really dive into it wholeheartedly. Where did that come from?
Well, thankfully, I've had my faith my whole life. My parents were believers, and they took us to church and Sunday school every Sunday. And my dad, every Sunday, when we came home, he would open the Bible to where the sermon left off, and he would continue. And so we would read the remainder of at least, that chapter, that book of the Bible, and then he would allow us to ask questions. And so we had, that opportunity to really dive into it and learn more about it. So I've always had it, thankfully, and, always kept it with me. And it's always helped me through the rough parts of my life. And so thankfully I had that. And then I also started learning more a few years before that about the law of attraction. And I know some people who are faith based don't really believe it, but I've found that they sort of complement each other. Because really, with the law of attraction, you are changing your mindset and you are learning to have faith that good things will happen, that what you put out into the universe is what you get back, which is similar to faith and, being a Christian, because we're taught to do good things, and that, by putting good out into the world, that's what we receive back. And so for me, it was, I was able to put them together.
Right.
And I had focused a lot on that over the previous few years and working on mindset. And that actually helped me get through the divorce. And then eventually, when I got to this stage, it helped me through that too. It really just sort of pulled everything together. So I was able to, take that mindset, and instead of focusing on, as I put it, the downside of everything, I focused on the upside. And so the upside for me in that moment was, one, I was alive. This surgeon said I was lucky to be alive. So I focused on that. I focused on that, that one, lining in that, that cloud. That's what I focused on. And even when the nurses and the doctors came in, because they came in often, and I was constantly having blood drawn, they were running more tests, just doing all kinds of things to me. And every time someone came into my room, I smiled and said, how are you today? And let them talk, and I just let them do their thing. And I wouldn't let anything negative enter my mind. I just focused on positivity and my faith. And like I said, but I think it came from always having it. I'm blessed in that way that it was always there for me.
I'm such a, I'm happy for you. I really,
Thank you.
I want to know though, when you got to the other side and you're like, okay, my legs come back to life, my faith is strong, everything is going well. Was there any sort of a self-reflection on, okay, God, why did you spare me? Like, why did you give me that? Why did I get it? Like, what really am I here for? Because that's what popped into my mind, is there could be this huge, like, next level awakening of, okay, now what?
hmm
Yeah.
And there was, yeah, it took a little bit of time to get to that point. Not a long time, but I'm talking, a few weeks to a month. I was already asking that and saying, not really asking why, but just saying thank you. That's how it started. Just thank you. And then as I progressed through my healing, because there was a long, long healing process, I still had a lot ahead of me beyond that. And through that, I did start asking that question, especially when I heard stories of other people and things they had been through. And I would think, wow, this was a lot to go through, but look at how blessed I am. So God, why? Why me of all people? I'm this little girl from Iowa, then from Texas, and I'm not famous. I don't, why me? And so yes, I did have that, but then I started seeing the opportunity and a new purpose. I already had passion, but I started seeing a new purpose. How can I use the passion that I already have and put it into this and find a way to help other people? And so that did lead into something. And then while I was recovering, I, for a while, stayed with my mom. She was a retired nurse, and so thankfully was there to help me with, changing bandages on wounds and all kinds of stuff. And one of her friends in town, a mechanic there, came to check on my car for me, and he heard my story. And the first thing he said to me after he heard what had happened, he looked right at me and said, God pulls from the pit, not the pulpit. You have a new purpose. And that just, it hit me like, wow. And here's someone who just heard the little bit of this story and said this to me. And it was like God was speaking through him and saying, you're right. I'm putting you in a spot. You don't have to be up at the pulpit. I pulled you from down here for a reason. And now I just had to figure out what that reason was.
And how long did it take you to figure that out?
It didn't take long to figure out the what. My purpose is to use what I've been through to help other people. It was the how that has taken a while, because that was over 5 years ago. And I'm still, I think, kind of tweaking the things that I do and the ways I can help. So it's the how that became the hard part.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I think I work very closely with female entrepreneurs that are struggling with their business. I'm new to this, fairly new, and I've learned that when I focus on the how, I get nowhere quickly. When I focus on the outcome that I want and I ask and I look for the opportunities and I surrender to the journey, then it seems to flow much better. But I think as a society, we are taught, go after the big goals and have a plan, figure it out. And once you figure it out, then you can act on it. And I'm learning in this business that I do to, what? It's not up to me to figure it out. It's up to me to be open to what I'm told. And it's a completely different, it's a mindset shift, but it's not always easy to do. So I think it's awesome that you're on that journey. What's one of the biggest learnings that you've had in this last few years as you try to navigate your new purpose?
Well, something you just said, which I loved, was learning to let go. And, here I am. I'm a Christian and I have my faith, but at some time, I just had this conversation recently with someone else about how it's still not easy to let go. And it says, let go and let God. But sometimes we want to hold on to it so tight. And, we know what we want and we think we know how to get there, that we tend to hold on to it and not, like you said, just let go and let the journey take us where it needs to take us. And, believe that, once you take that first step, the next step will show to you. And that's all part of that journey. You don't have to know the entire path. You do have to have that idea of where you want to go in mind, and you just have to start. Take the first step and then the next step will appear. But that has been something I've really had to learn, is to, I've got the idea, thank you, God, I've got this new purpose and I'm going to go after it and I know where I want to go. But then, okay, I sometimes have to slow down and just let go and let him guide the way, let him lead me where he wants me to go. And so one thing I've added, this is something I never did before, was meditate. I would pray, but I really wouldn't meditate. So I started just taking time, usually at night when I'm, ready to go to bed, everything's dark and quiet. I'll pray, but then I will take some time just to, sort of lean back, close my eyes, and I will do two things. One, I'll ask God, okay, what's the next step? And please, I'm letting you guide me, just guide me, help me. And then I will ask myself, okay, what is it I really truly want? And then am I on the right path? Am I doing what I think God needs me to do and what I need to do for me? And I let my him guide me and I let my heart guide me. And those two things have really helped to where now in this past 6 months to a year, everything has changed. And I really feel now like I am on the right path.
Oh my God, I love that story. And I'm wholeheartedly with you. When I when I started doing this work, well, I've been on a journey of personal discovery for like 30 years. My dad introduced me to transcendental meditation when I was in my 20s. And my very first book on anything was from Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. I was fascinated. So I've been reading and studying and doing and thinking and meditating forever. But fairly recently, I had a visual about my journey in so much as I feel like I don't feel it. I know that there are people on this plane that are here to help me. Friends, family, peers, clients. I know it. People that I'm, connect with on the street, even if it's just a hello. I know that there's a tribe here to help me. I also know there's a tribe on the other plane here to help me. And I picture them going, did she get it? Oh my God, Mahara. Oh yes, she got it. Okay. All right, everybody, move on. Next step. Let's make sure Mahara sees the next, let's make sure she sees the next clue that we're going to give her. And I picture people on the spiritual plane and people here just sort of cheering me on as I sort of let them sort of show me the way. But it was
Mm-hmm.
hard, and it continues to be sometimes really, really challenging because I said this to someone the other day. I'm very creative, and I know exactly what would be an amazing way for me to accomplish X. This is gonna happen, and then that's gonna happen, and I picture it all because I'm such a creative person. And then somebody will say, yeah, but what if there's a better way? And I'm like, well, how could there be? And we have a laugh about it. But I think as badasses, because we are both badasses, that is part of the journey, is recognizing we don't have to have all the answers, but we do have to have belief in ourselves that we will get there. And
Yes, the
that's a
belief.
really important key in feeling badass about things. You know, you know, my mother-in-law doesn't like the word badass. She's of a different generation. She's like, you are going to use that word in your business? Are you insane? And I'm like, but mom, for us, it means something different than a hooligan, right? From the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And really what I want my clients to understand, and everybody listening, is that you don't have to have accomplished anything magnificent, major, or huge in your life to think of yourself as the badass. All you need to do is put your hand on your heart and say, I matter. I'm a child of the universe, or I'm a child of God, depending on your faith, or I'm just a kick-ass girl or a kick-ass boy. When we recognize that we matter and that we are here for a reason, you're badass, right? Whether you make mistakes or not, you're still a badass because you have that recognition of your worth. So, okay, I digress a little bit. Talk to me about your singing and the karaoke champion. What's that all about?
I I I don't sing I guess professionally. But I've always sang. Music's always been a part of my life. And I consider that another gift from God because, through bad times, there's music that soothes me. In good times, I find music to accompany that. It's just always been a part of my life. And so, yes, I love to sing, always sang, used to sing in church choir when I was young, even with a wisdom tooth being pulled and completely numb. Yeah, that was a good one. And just always sang. And for a while, when before I got married and moved to Texas, I used to sing at weddings. And so I did, I guess, professionally sing for a little while and absolutely loved it. But it's just remained a part of my life, even just a little part of my life. But yeah, I do karaoke here and there. Um, Went one night with some friends, a couple of years ago. Didn't realize there was a competition and got up there and sang and ended up winning at the end of the night. And, was so excited, especially when there are big groups of people and they're all cheering on their one friend. And I had just a little group of people, but people loved me enough that I still won.
Song
And so
I have to ask, what song were you singing?
I did Lady Gaga's You and I.
Oh,
That was the one. Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I love her anyway.
That's so awesome.
Yep. And so yeah, so I ended up winning, went back for a finals competition, didn't end up winning that one, but just had a blast, being there with all the other people. And that's the fun of it too. Just being in the room and hearing all the other singers, who have the courage to get up there and sing, because it does take courage to get up there and do that. And so it's just, it's fun. And now I've just started a new church. So I haven't done the worship team yet. I'm kind of just, getting the groove there. But I'm hoping, here soon I'll get to know them well enough that maybe I'll get to sing with the worship team and, get to do that again. Because yeah, it's just like I said, I'm not professional by any means, but it's a huge part of my life. And when I do get the chance to sing karaoke or, compete, I'm all for it. It's a blast.
It is so much fun. I used to sing. Oh, I sing all the time, every day, right? We're constantly listening to music and singing and going to concert. Well, haven't gone to concerts that much recently, but there was a time when my husband and I would fly all over the States to watch Dave Matthews Band because
Oh,
we just love music so much. So it's beautiful that you have that. And I just want to touch that having fun in life is another way to up your energy and to attract, to raise your vibe, so to speak. Whether and it's not about singing well, it's just because I think when we sing and we enjoy it, or when we do anything that we enjoy, we are paying homage to the fact that that we're spiritual beings having a human existence. And that I understand that many of us have had challenging upbringings, and we've gone through periods in our life where there was perhaps nothing to smile about or laugh about. But when you do find joy, do whatever you can to amplify it. And if you like to sing, sing every day. If you like to read,
yep.
read as much as you can. If you like to watch Netflix with your husband, do whatever it takes to bring you that level of happiness and joy, because it's another way, I think, of paying homage to our journey on this plane. So I love that you're recognizing how much fun you have. I want to know
Yeah.
more about a life story transformation coach. I'm a coach, a life coach, but I've never heard it referred to as, I've never heard life story transformation coach. Tell me about
Well,
that.
for me, this is one of the other epiphanies I had on one of those nights I told you when I was praying and meditating and trying to figure out how to sort of wrap up everything that I love and want to do. And it finally came to me that pretty much everything in my life from the time I can remember has revolved around story, whether it's writing stories, telling stories, speaking, singing, sharing my story, hearing other stories. It's all revolved around that. And it's such a big part of my life that that's what I wanted to do, was find a way to help people, either kind of pull up their story. And if their story isn't where they want it to be, what can I do to help make that story an epic life story movie that you are proud and love to watch over and over again, and it will leave a legacy? What can we do to get you to that point where you love your life story? And then if you want to share that story, how can I help you there? So I also help new writers who want to publish get through that overwhelming process of self-publishing so that they can get that book out of them and out into the world to share their story. So that's what it is. It's life story. You're here. You have one precious life. You're only here for so long. What can we do to make that story great, to make that an epic life story? And so that's the focus.
I love that focus. When you say, what can I do to help you make that story great? Are you helping your clients change their relationship with a memory? Or are you helping them to just change the direction of their life currently so that they can feel confident saying, this is who I am today, and not deal with the past? I'm just curious about what you're actually doing, because they could go in so many different ways. Or is it different for everybody?
That's the thing. It can be different for everybody. Um, I was working with a coach, And she was asking me some questions like that, like, who is your client? Who do you really want to help? And I finally told her, I said, okay, this is how my best way to describe it is I take, especially women, that's my focus, are women who wake up saying, you know, I didn't sign up for this, to take them from that point to waking up saying, I love my life. That's the main, that's what I want to do, is get them from that point where they're discouraged, where things aren't going as planned. And they'll either ask, how did I get here? Which I did many times, and get them from that point to saying, I love my life. So it might be, getting past a bad divorce like I had to, or it might be, okay, I have a dream, but I have this family, I have a job, I don't have time for it. Okay, how can we make time for it? Or it might be just, taking a bad story, something that they tell themselves every day, and flipping the script on that to create a new, better script that makes them feel better about themselves and helps improve their lives, which therefore gives them a better story. So it can be different for each person depending on where they are in their journey.
Such important work that you're doing. And speaking of stories, I ran a free masterclass last week called Cultivate Your CEO Mindset, because I help women discover their badassery so they can build a better business. I don't want them to not waste. I don't want them to spend 3 years like I did trying to figure my stuff out, because it took me almost 3 years to realize I had to do the inner work before I could navigate the outer work and the reality of being an entrepreneur. So anyway, we were having this masterclass, and one of the ladies that was attending, she shared something that I thought was very powerful, which was, I'm such a great storyteller, but I'm never very nice to myself. So whatever happens in my business, I make up a story about it. And usually I'm the one at fault. And I thought that was really powerful. To your point, some of us have stories that truly are not very pleasant, but some of us have just, I think, created a misunderstanding about a situation that led to a story that is actually BS. But it's a limiting belief that we've had for so long. It's like, oh well, that's how I am. I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm not enough, or I'm not. So, to your point, storytelling is part of our character, part of our nature as human beings, but they're not always the right story, or it's not always a correct story, or it's not always a story that actually serves us. Yes, it may be factually true, but our feelings and attachments to the facts are pulling us away from our greatness. And so people like therapists and coaches can help you change your relationship with that story. Does that,
Yes.
yeah. Does that
Yes,
resonate?
that was the great way of putting it. I love that.
This is what I do for a living. I talk about what I do for a living, and I help other people do what they do for a living. But storytelling can work for us, or it can also work against us. And I think it takes real courage to question the story, especially the familial stories. Well, that's how I was raised, or that's how I was treated. And when I took my certification as a mastery method certified coach, it was a year-long certification, and we talked a lot about judgments and the judgments that we have on others. And I realized, my mind was blown, because I always thought I was a really happy-go-lucky, easygoing, empathetic girl, But when I took a deep dive on it, I realized I had so many judgments about others that were a reflection of what I thought of myself. And I was creating stories for other people that just weren't true. And when I actually had the guts to say, actually stop, this is what I'm hearing. Is that what you meant to say? And this was with my husband. And he'd be like, I never said that. Where did that come from? And I'm like, well, it's this thing I'm learning. It's about being judgmental. And that's the story that when you say this, I hear that. So what a big awakening to recognize that we also live in judgment of ourselves, of each other, of the past. And many of us get caught judging the future, and it hasn't even happened.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's a waste of time.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you're better off living in the present and enjoying each day and making each day as great as you can, because that will build the better future.
Absolutely.
So, exactly.
I think I don't know who said it, but I'm sure I read it somewhere that there actually is no future. If you are fully present, there's never a future
Oh,
because you're fully present. I'm sure
that's
I read
good.
it
Yeah,
somewhere, but it kind of makes sense because I also meditate. My business is called Mindfulness with Mahara. So I'm very aware and believe in practicing mindfulness and being very, very present. And if you are present, you are not in the past, freaking out and worrying about what you did or didn't do. And you're not freaking out or worrying about the future. But it's not an easy thing to do. Tell us a little bit about all of these crafts, the things that you are making for your various shops on Etsy.
oh yeah, that's the other side of me. I love, artsy, love all the craft stuff, love making things. And I do a lot of it with my sisters. I have three sisters, and we'll get together in our sister weekends and just craft and create stuff, which is so much fun. But yes, I make jewelry for one shop, and I do a lot of printables for another shop, which, are journals, planners, worksheets, just different things to help people with different things. And so I'm just starting a new one that is all focused on the life coaching. And I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but it's going to be called the Life Coach Corner. And so it's just things that you might get help from a life coach for. So, so some of the journals, planners, a lot of worksheets helping through, things like flipping the script, the things we tell ourselves and, affirmations, dealing with anxiety, just all those different things. Self-care and self-love and kindness, I think, are huge. Going back to what you were just saying, those judgments and things we tell ourselves, we all need to work on that. And so, yeah, so I do different things, make t-shirts and design cups, and it's just, I do all kinds of stuff. I love crafts and making things.
I am not sure you're busy enough.
I know that's the thing. I end up staying up way too late, and yeah, sometimes I don't get enough sleep, but I'd much rather be doing something like that and enjoying my life every day than being bored or just letting it go, letting it slip away, because my life almost did slip away, and I don't ever want that to happen. I want to be able to enjoy every day that I'm here.
Amen. So, what is on the horizon for you next?
Okay, next is continuing work with my life coaching. I'm working on some new workshops to help people with therapeutic art, because once again, the craft side of me, combining it with that way to help people. And I am working on several new books, because of course I can't work on one at a time.
Of course not. I mean, God
Of
forbid.
course not. Yeah, so I'm working on the book that's based on my story. And then I'm working on a fiction book, but it has a lot of my story in it.
Mm.
So the main character goes through a lot of stuff. And I actually wrote a short story that won several awards. And so I decided to take that short story and now turn it into a novel because people kept asking me, where's the rest of the story? We love it. We want to know more. And I thought, well, if that many people want to know the rest of the story, then I've got to create more of a story for this character.
Yeah, you better
So,
write it. You better write it.
yep.
What are, if can you share a couple of your top tips for feeling badass? Because that's what we're here to talk about. But are there things that you do regularly that really have helped you to really feel aligned, connected, and all of the things that you are feeling that I also say, AKA, also known as being a badass?
One is to follow your dreams. Um, because like I said, I did put off a lot of what I wanted to do because as I call it, life happened. And and that was one of the hardest things that hit me after that incident was about a month later, with everything I was going through, all the pain, all the recovery, everything, it hit me one day that I almost died without ever realizing my dream of being a published author. And that hit me so hard. I mean, I broke down and cried that day. And it was, let me see, just 2 months later that I finished and published my first book while I was recuperating because I decided I was not going to let something stand in the way of that dream anymore. And it took almost dying to get me to that point. So one of my tips for people is don't let almost dying get you to that point because, you don't want to get to that stage. Enjoy your life now and enjoy that one precious life. If you have a dream or a goal, go after it. Don't let anything stand in your way. Yes, you may have work, you have, your family, you've got kids you're running around with, doing all kinds of things with. Enjoy that too, but make time for those other things. Don't get to the end of your life and regret something. And so follow your dreams and then step out of your comfort zone. Just doing this, being on a podcast, being interviewed, for a while, it felt like I was really stepping out of my comfort zone for that. I signed up for a speaking competition, a couple of years ago, had never done anything like that before, heard about it, the Great American Speak Off. And out of thousands of people, I was one of 30 people who received a golden ticket at the audition. And it was very nerve-wracking. It was crazy. But by the end of the day, I went home with a golden ticket and I was so pumped up and excited. I felt like a badass that day. I was like, yes, I'm like, I'm a badass. Look at what I did. And then when I published my first book and then my second book, holding it in my hand and seeing something I had written, right there, I felt like a badass. Like, look what I did. So anything like that you want to do, whether it's, running a marathon, that's not me. But, if you want to go run a marathon or be in a triathlon, go for it. Just anything like that, well, as I like to say, do more of what lights up your soul. If there's something out there that makes you light up when you talk about it, do more of it. Don't let anything else stand in your way. And then when you accomplish something great, celebrate it and go out and tell people, look at me, I'm a badass. Claim it for yourself and just enjoy every day. That's what I'm trying to do.
Great, great advice. Dream big, step out of your comfort zone and celebrate everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Celebrate the life you were given. It's a blessing.
Yeah. And it's also the life that you are making for yourself, right?
Yes.
Like I said, like we all know, a lot of us have had challenges, but when you put yourself first with the understanding that you matter, then it's easier to navigate the disappointments, right? When you dream big,
Yes.
it's easier to navigate the disappointments because there's the dream pulling you. When you step outside your comfort zone, in a way, it gets easier to navigate the disappointments because you can say, look at what I did. Look at what I did. So, and when you celebrate,
Yep.
of course, it just builds you up. And I have really enjoyed our conversation. I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day. And this has been such an inspiring conversation. I can't wait to hear what our listeners feel about your story. And of course, guys, check the show notes because what I'm going to put all the ways that you can connect with Ann, learn more about her, learn more about my business as well, so that you can just have a very rounded experience on the podcast today. My name is Mahara, and thank you again, Ann C.K. Nickell. I want to get her full name because that's what she's known by. Thank you again for joining us today. And everyone, I'll see you next week on the Art of Badassery. My name is Mahara. Have a great week. Thanks for tuning in to another badass episode. Your support means the world to me. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, share, and rate the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback keeps the badassery flowing. And hey, if you're ready to unleash your inner badass and conquer whatever life throws your way, why not book a complimentary badass breakthrough session? Just click the link in the show notes to schedule your session, and let's kick some serious butt together. Until next time, stay fearless, stay fabulous, and of course, stay badass. This is Mahara signing off.